Hello, everybody, and you're welcome to another episode of the Coffee and Beans podcast. My name is Adesola Balogun. On today's episode, we'll be talking about financing for your business. It's a very tricky topic. It's a very interesting one at that. We're going to talk about how to raise money for your business, what is good debt, what is bad debt, channels to raising funds, capital, and on this episode I have Mr. Oke. Mr. Oke, with almost 2 decades of experience in the financial industry, he has established himself as a powerhouse, an innovative leader and advisor with expertise in areas of finance, investment banking, capital raising, marketing strategy, customer conversion and retention, effective team leadership, and customer loyalty. He's a distinguished investment banking professional with cognate expertise in raising equity and debt capital for both public and private sector clients. He has successfully raised various classes of capital for several Nigerian corporate and government institutions. He's currently the managing director of Griffin Finance Limited. Griffin is a subsidiary of Vetiva Capital Management. Mr. Oke provides strategic leadership to the finance house business while coordinating the activities of the high-performing teams of the firm to exceed expectations of the stakeholders. He is also doubles as director of group sales of Vetiva Capital Management Limited, where he oversees institutional and retail sales teams and coordinates the sales business across his 5 subsidiaries. Mr. Oke is a public and passionate speaker who has facilitated several training sessions for corporate organizations, schools, religious bodies. He facilitates regularly at the induction program for new employees of GT Bank and Access Bank. He's happily married and is blessed with 2 adorable girls. You can tell that he has a very rich CV. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're
very
welcome.
much.
You're welcome, Mr. B.
It's a privilege to be here. Thanks for having me.
I consider it an honor for you to be here. Thank you so much for finding the time, to speak to us about something which I consider the life wire of any business, which is putting it in lay terms, money. I've had a few entrepreneurs. I've interviewed and had a few entrepreneurs on this podcast, and there's a recurring word that keeps coming up, which is money, funding. I've been privileged to speak to people who it is clear that these people know what it is they are doing. But if you ask them, why haven't you scaled up? Why hasn't your business grown more than this? Why don't you think you could do this? And what keeps coming back is money. What is it about? So let's kickstart this. What is it about whether you want to call it money, funding, that scares people, or that is such a myth to a lot of people?
Thank you very much, Outspoken. Thank you for having me. It's a real privilege being here.
Thank you.
And yes, thank you. Now, a very, very interesting topic we have here. Money, funding, capital.
Capital, yes, they are used interchangeably.
Basically, yeah. So basically, it's a resource. Yeah, so it's a resource that is required to produce goods and services.
Yep.
So you really, yes, you have that dream, you have that idea, but without money, without that basic resource to make it come to life, it just, it just remains as an imagination, basically.
Yeah.
But for you to bring it to life, you need resources.
Yes.
And that resources is what we call money, is what we call capital or funding, basically. So it funds our operations. It makes the world go round.
Yes,
so money is really very important and all of that. Money is a principal thing. Money is crucial.
Yes, it is. It is just, no doubt.
It's just very, very important. So without it, you really cannot even create. Without it, you can't start. You need money to be able to fuel that idea, that concept in your mind, and that makes it very, very important. And yeah, we can also look at it as a means of exchange, basically. Yeah, so it's a means of exchange. It's used in exchanging for value. People use money to store value. I also use it to exchange for value, basically. Yeah.
So I want to expand on that a bit and say, so why is it that a lot of people struggle with the idea of raising funds, raising capital, and are there any other ways to expand or start your business without having the physical cash? I know before we started this podcast, we were talking about how there's so much priority on physical cash, and people don't even talk about social capital. So are there any other ways apart from, because like I said, I've spoken to a lot of people, entrepreneurs that just want to start, about to start. Oh, why haven't you done this? Oh, there's no money. Oh, I need money to do this. I need money to do this. What other forms of capital can one leverage on as an entrepreneur to pivot your business?
Thank you very much. Okay, so when we talk about capital, so I'll just speak to some different types of capital available, and of course I'll start with very popular ones. So when we talk about capital broadly, we can break it into equity and debt.
Okay.
Equity speaks to when you part with ownership, a part of a stake,
right,
like ownership in the business,
right,
and of course, while debt on the other hand does not require any form of ownership. It's just like a lender. It doesn't have an ownership in the business. It just gives you some portion of money, to trade with and do business with.
Right.
You get my point now, and of course, but you also need to identify the uniqueness of each. Basically, for equity is also more expensive, than debt.
How do you mean? How do you mean it's more expensive?
Okay, so when we say it's more expensive, so it's more expensive by a function of, remember that the guy is taking a stake in your business. In
your business.
So for example,
he's like a lifelong commitment,
exactly,
so to speak.
Exactly,
right.
Basically. So it's so meaning that if you make profit, it takes a share of your profit, basically, which depending on the stake he has invested will likely be more than what you are going to repay, as in form of a loan repayment, basically. You get my point? Yeah, because the guy that has invested equity, is having ownership and is collecting dividend at the end of the year, whereas the lender is just collecting his loan repayment, basically. Yes, and of course, talk about tenor again. Most of the time, equity is usually it's usually tenorless. So it could be for the life for the life of that business, depending on some other conditions. But of course, for loans, or debts, it has specific tenor,
right?
So those are part of the points, to also check in these things. And of course, in debt you will repay, but equity you won't repay. But the guy takes a share of your income and all of that, of the profit at the end of every year, depending on that arrangement. Of course. So it's important that we even separate.
Yeah. So I mean, I would sorry to interrupt, Mr. Oke. I was going to ask. So in your vast experience that you have, which do you think is the lesser of the two evils, if I will call it that? Which would you recommend to that person that wants to scale up their business? And should I speak to an investor to invest and commit myself to having so somebody who's going to take part of my profit forever, or should I approach a lender and get funds for this long, and then pay for this much? Which is it? Because I call them let's out because I've seen people's fingers get burnt on both sides. On both sides. So which, as a professional now, which do you think is better, so to speak?
Okay, what we recommend is first to even determine the current state of that business. I mean, the
how
current,
bankable your business is.
not even that yet. So talking about, so there's a product life cycle.
Right.
Get my point now. That product life cycle, the early stage, the growth, maturity, then decline.
Right.
So, you need first of all identify where you are, which states, what state on this product cycle are you? Because each state in the cycle requires a unique kind of funding. I get my point.
Right.
Yeah. So the early stage, of course, so if you are at the early stage, the truth is that no financial institution will look at you.
But why though?
Well, so because it's simple. The risk profile is high. The risk profile is high.
What if I have a product that is undoubtedly going to sell? Like there's no how. As in, if just on paper, it's a good idea.
So,
yes. Why?
So you see, there's research that 90% of startups don't even succeed.
Succeed, yes.
So to a lender, that is high risk and all of that. But the good thing is this: so the financial institution is not touching you. There are other options to explore, basically. So so for an early stage person, you should not even look at a lender, basically. I think at that stage you should be looking at friends and families. Very important. Yes. So I want to start a business. What have I saved? And all of that. You need to have some form of savings yourself to even kickstart. If you don't believe in your project enough to put your own personal funds, so why do you want somebody else to put their funds? Basically, you must. What have you saved? You should have worked somewhere. You should have done something. You should have, start with what you have. Basically, then you now begin to talk about friends. This, so when you hear the concept of bootstrapping, that's it. Bootstrap it. Right. Try it with your own money resources. And your own resources. Yes, that way, if it fails, you know that your liability is limited to just you than taking money from a third party, which now becomes an issue at the end of the day. So the place of friends and family is also very critical, and I think people should explore that place the more. But how are you able to do that successfully? Earlier, I was talking about the different types of capital,
yes,
and that brings us to the place of social capital and all of that. We need to build our social capital as a person. The Holy Book talks about that a good name is better than great riches.
Yeah,
that is it. So the Holy Book literally equated your reputation, your good name, your brand, your personal brand to great riches and all of that. Yeah, so it's a currency which can be traded, and that's why it's important that we begin to build it. So, how do you effectively build it? Your words. You must be a man of your words. When you say it, you do it. When you borrow, repay. That's where you begin to build credibility. You begin to build integrity. People can trust you. People believe in you to that extent, and that is I think that's the easiest way to start. Basically, when people trust you enough, at that stage, you can even get some form of supply credit. So there are options like that. So some people can give you, some suppliers can give you their goods on credit, and you only have to pay 60 days after they have given you that product. Those are ways in which you can it will help us to effectively manage our cash flow. Basically, So so it doesn't have to start with borrowing. Doesn't have to start with even an investor. And of course, at that early stage, so there are also some types of investors that can also look at one. And those are the guys we call the angel investors, basically. So they will invest at that very early stage, and they get a stake, a share of the business. And all of that, of course, they have a stake, they have part ownership of the business and all of that. And of course, here you need to seek some professional advice to be able to negotiate effectively. And of course, when you get to the growth stage, there's another kind of funding there, and that's what you talk of. You can now engage venture capitalists. So they have seen, these are investors that will not touch a startup. But when you have crossed that stage, they see that, you're profitable, there's growth. Yes, so these guys can come in, and inject some capital. At this point too, I think it might not be a bad idea to now begin to look at the financial institutions. They can, for most of the time, they might even come to you, when they see that you're throwing out some decent figures and all of that, basically. So it depends on that stage in which you are, that will determine the right funding to jump on.
Okay. So I want to quickly address the investor. I mean, I'll talk about the investor equity side and the debt side. I mean, you are the professional, so all the questions I've had in my mind, I would ask. So, as an investor, what are investors looking for in businesses to invest in? That's one question. Number two, what should the entrepreneur, the business owner, be careful to look out for when an investor comes and says, "Oh, I like your business. I want to invest." Should that person take money from just anybody that is willing to offer money? So, I mean, let's start with what does an investor look out for when he's looking for? Or does he just say, "I like the sound of this business. I like the product you are doing. Take $1 million." What due diligence does the investor look out for before he drops his money? And then we'll also address what the business owner should look out for from investors.
Okay, thank you very much. So for a typical business, I will encourage that we keep excellent
Books,
basically. Yes, it's very important. From day one, we must structure our operations, structure our systems in a way that you're bankable, you are investment ready, basically. So your books must be tight. As simple as you separating your personal operations and account from that corporate. It's very, very important. I've seen instances whereby, somebody has come for a level of funding and is also saying, "Oh, part of my inflows pass through my personal account." Nobody's going to take you too seriously that way. And that's the truth. So from day one, we must ensure that you're separated.
So pretty much separate yourself from the business.
Correct. Yeah, because they're both two different entities. Correct. Yeah. So it's important that you separate it from there. Let your bookkeeping be tight and all that. Even if you can't afford an accountant for now, you can get some outsourced. Some accountants. There are some accounting services. There's some shared accounting services. We will just come maybe 2-3 days in a month and help you put your books together. But it's very important that bookkeeping is tight.
Yeah.
So that from day one you even know whether you're making profits or not. You can separate that. So separate your personal records from your business records. Very, very important. Then of course we talk about the place of financial reporting. From day one you need to have a balance sheet, a P&L, a profit and loss statement. Yes, an income statement. Let it be very clear. Let's know what's the value of your assets. How many machines? What's the value of your machines? What's the value? What resources? What resources are running and what are they? What assets are running and what is the figures? What's the result that they are throwing out? Get my point? Yeah. So basically, and these services are not very. They're not very expensive, basically. You can just get someone that will do these things for you. They're already available everywhere, and just like you can negotiate a price. So at the end of the year, you see your figures on paper. So you're ready. So by the time that opportunity comes to engage an investor, you are ready. You're ready. Basically, yes. That's not the word. It's not when in your third year that you are thinking of an investor that you now begin to do your financials. There's no way you will get accurate figures and all of that. Most of the time you now begin to estimate and all of that, and you really will not get the true picture. But when you see an opportunity, you're ready, you're able to jump at it. It makes life easy. And I will also stress the place of tax compliance. Yes, tax compliance. So it's at that point that business wants to bid for a government job or a contract that they now already ask for his tax papers. It now begins to run around. I think from day one, once you have done your financials, you already see your profit or loss, and based on that, you can engage a tax consultant.
Does the accountant is the accountant equipped enough to do one's tax? Especially for an entrepreneur that started maybe that is 1 or 2 years into the business and cannot employ that many.
Correct.
Cannot take on so many services.
Great.
Yeah.
So you don't even need to employ these people, sincerely, because I'm sure if you look in your network, you will have one old colleague,
someone who is into the business
from the uni who is today into taxes. You have somebody who is into finance who can even help you with that book. on a commission basis or something. You get my point? So these things are not, it's not, you don't have to employ somebody for taxes. No, you don't really have to do that.
Right.
Basically, no, you don't have to. But of course, for finances, I think you need somebody to sit on your finances. That's very important. Who will do the bookkeeping and all of that. And at the end of the year, engage a tax consultant who does that whole entire tax computation for you. Yes. And like I said, if you look within your network, you will find somebody who will do that for you. Then the next point is the place of credit reports and all of that. Credit reports. Now, the credit rating system in Nigeria is getting better structured, whereby, you want to obtain a loan, or even from an investor, and they run a credit check on you, and they can see whether you've had a bad loan somewhere or not. Basically, you get it? Yes.
Yeah.
So we see the lenders now populating the portal. So as far back as 10, 15 years, a bad loan that you've abandoned somewhere can just be the
come and bite you.
Yes, come and bite and mess up things. So ensure that your credit, your report is good. Then I'll even advise entrepreneurs that from time to time, and even not just entrepreneurs, everyone, from time to time, just run a check on yourselves. You can
credit check
on yourself. Yeah. So there are platforms on, there are local platforms, there are local credit agencies where you just pay 1,000 or 2,000 naira and you get a report, basically. So just put in your BVN, and it throws out your report. So even before you even engage any lender to know whether you have a bad credit or not. Basically, very important. And of course, the place of structured systems, we need to structure for growth. Like we said earlier, it's not about the number of staff, but just structure for growth. Let your business be well structured. Let things be done well. It's just your business should, it's not multinational yet,
exactly,
but it should reflect that it's moving in that direction,
right?
Basically, So let things be done orderly. It can be the same person that is an admin and is also doing HR, and is doing all of that. They can combine resources, yes, but let's have those structures at least on paper, and let somebody in the minimum oversee them and ensure that things don't fall through the cracks.
I mean, I think for me, I would say for I started my business in school. And I say a lot of sense what you're saying, because for me, starting business was a survival tactic. That was when we started. Just make enough money to eat, to feed. What would you say to that person that is telling himself, I'm making profit to barely get by? This one that you are telling me to hire accountant, hire tax, hire, do I need it now? Why not wait till when I get when I start having 2 or 3 start? Is it because from what you said, from day one when you start making profits, when you should put all these things in place? What would you say to that person who is telling you, who is saying that I have just one staff for my payroll? Are you saying that I should structure my company now, or should I wait until we are big enough, in quotes, before I start putting these structures in place?
Thank you very much. So you see, I've seen businesses grow from 2 people, employing 2 people to 100 people, and all of that. So, and it starts from the way you are also positioned.
Yes.
Yeah. So from day one, you should be positioned for that growth. Even if it's just the CEO, even when you are the only staff, I get my point now. You must ensure that, like we had earlier said, separate your personal finance from your business. Yes, that's one. You can do that yourself. You can initiate that yourself and all of that. And of course, and as things. Of course, as the operations increase, you begin to bring in people to help with other things.
Right.
Because as the CEO, we must also not be too pressed down with operational works. Operational running of the business. Yes, that to a large extent is going to affect the pace and the speed at which you can go. Because as a leader, you should focus more on strategy. On marketing, on bringing in the business.
The business, yes.
Let somebody else handle the operations, the day-to-day running, all of that, entries and all that. You can't afford to do all of that on your own. So minimum, have 2 people. Start with 2 people. You focus on strategy, you focus on marketing.
Right.
Let somebody else handle the operations. And as the business grow, then you begin to add people, to take on additional roles and load. basically.
All right. So we have addressed what investors are looking out for. Now, what should an entrepreneur who somebody approaches and says, "Hi, I like your business. I want to put in money." I mean, naturally, everybody needs money. What should that business owner look out for? What words should the investor be saying for you to know? Because I've seen people, we've heard of stories even on the media where people collect money from investors and then end up getting hooked, end up getting trapped. The business, in fact, the business grows to the point where they end up pushing you, who started the business, from your garage or from your business room out, and they put a new board and all that. So what should an entrepreneur or business owner look out for when an investor comes in with the goodies? Yes.
Great question, sincerely. I think straight to the point, you need to look at the terms. You need to look at the terms, and conditions. You need to read those tiny print, the fine print, read them, then get also an expert. You can get a lawyer that will help you do this. And all that. I'm sure you have a lawyer in your network. Yeah. You need to leverage your network. We've stressed that place. Read those terms and conditions. They must, and if you don't understand, seek for clarification. Very important, because the devil is in the details. So we need to get the details, get what each phrase means and all that, so that you are not in any way trapped, basically. So you need to look at the terms. If the terms are favorable, why not wait? If you need it, it's called leverage. It's going to help you expand your business. You can do a lot more and all. But of course, if it's not by force. You need to now, but be sure that you've checked the details so well.
Okay, I want to ask a question. I mean, it is a, and I'm glad you are here, because I mean, as much as we're talking generally about entrepreneurs, there's some personal question I want to ask. Which do you support? Organic growth, or that is, you've done your business is growing. Okay, so this year you started with 1, year 2, 3, year 4, year 3, 5 staff, or year 1 I started with 1. There's an inflow, and boom, the business grows. 10 branches nationwide. International branches open up soon. Which do you think is healthier for a business? To grow organically, you make profits, maybe then you get to that point where, we'll get to that point where we need to get an inflow, but all this while we've expanded using our own money. Or on the other side, we are barely 2 years old and we are bigger than even a company that is growing organically, and we are 10 times bigger than a company that has been in it for 10 years. Well, from the finance aspect, what do you say to that?
Thank you very much. Now, I think I'll also go back to that product life cycle. Yeah. Basically, because it's also, so talking about growth and expansion in business, I think it's also peculiar to different unique businesses and all that. Yeah. Business sectors, basically. So for some, maybe in 2 years you could have exploded. For some other ones, maybe in 5-10 years, you're still, at the early stage. Right. So it depends. So, for example, a trader now, if someone is into trading, can actually blow in 2 years or less.
Very true.
Yes, talking about volumes and all. So I think it depends on the type of business. It depends on the business sector and some other factors. But so because of this, we can't say, is it organic growth or is it exponential or maybe measures, and all of that. Mm-hmm. It depends. I think that it depends on the peculiar situation. Right. It depends on peculiar business, part-time, but I think it's just important that businesses are structured such that you're able to recognize opportunities, and you're able to, jump at them when they show up. Comes. Correct. Yeah, basically. Yeah. So I'll just leave it at that. But so that entrepreneur, I think it's important that you identify that state, where exactly are you in
Are
that,
you
in
in
that
that
business?
business? Yeah.
If you have crossed the early stage, then you should be at the growth stage. And what are the points? What are the things you use to characterize, these different stages? For the early stage, of course, there's low cost. There's low sales. There's high costs. You're usually not making profit at that
Yes,
early
true.
stage. But for the growth stage, you've started touching profits, increasing sales, and reduced costs. At maturity state, yes, it's reduced cost, it's increasing profit, and consistent sales. You get my point now. So you need to get to look at where you are.
Where you are.
And when you get to decline, that's when you know that there's reduced profits. There's reduced profits, there's reducing sales, and consistent cost. So there are different actions to take per time. So that when you identify where you are, you now begin to take the right actions, to be able to get out of and or keep up with the if you're already on the good path, keep doing what you're doing.
Right.
And if you notice some slack, begin to address them and amend it accordingly.
Okay. Yeah. So we've talked about equity. Now I want to talk about debt. Okay. For the longest time, personally, I ran away from debt because, especially bank loans, because I've seen bank loans swallow up people, send people to the hospital, send people to the early graves. I know there's good debt and there's bad debt. When is the right time to take a loan? It's okay. When is the right time for that business to say, okay, I think we need to take a loan? And is there a percent? For instance, now, if my business is making 5 million naira, if my business has an annual turnover of 5 million naira, is it advisable to take a loan of 10 million? And I don't talk about interest rates, because interest rates keep increasing, and our dear banks are very, very skeptical about lending, especially to MSMEs. And I don't blame them. There's a particular bank which offered some sort of credit line to fashion and food entrepreneurs about 2 years ago. And in fact, the high rate of default was so much. I think the interest rate was 9% per annum. And you would think that business owners that jumped at it will be so happy to want to repay back, but you find people splurging on those monies, just squandering it. So, back to my question: when is the right time for a business owner to take a loan? 1, 2, what is the percentage of your turnover? 2, how much loan you should take? And then 3, I don't know if you can answer this question, but what interest rate is actually favorable for an MSME business in Nigeria? And what loans should you stay away from? Yes. And what kind of loans should you stay away from? Mm-hmm. Because I know that, not like I said, there's good debt and bad debt. I learned from the experience of others. So there are some loans I won't touch with a long football. So let me start from the first. When is a good time to get a loan?
Correct. Okay, let's take it this way. As a business owner, I must understand my figures very well.
Yep.
Get my point? I must understand my figures very well. I must know that if I inject this particular fund into my business, it will throw out these particular figures.
Yeah.
You must know that even in your sleep. It must be that ready. So if already, let's take it, for example, I inject 10 million naira into my business, and I know that this 10 million naira additional resource is going to leave me with a 3 million naira profit. You get my point now? Mm-hmm. That's about 30% profit.
Right.
Now, so I'm thinking, now this money is coming, this 10 million is coming at the cost. If it's coming at the cost of 20% per annum, I get my point now. Yeah. So that leaves me with what? With 10%.
10%, yes.
So I now begin to look at it. Does it make sense?
And
all that. If it does, look at it. Basically, yeah. Of course, you also need to now consider some other factors. There's inflation, but it's neither here nor there. Maybe we can still try to manage that. But in event that your 10 million is going to give you a profit of additional 1 million, and you're giving you a loan at 20%. You know that it's already dead on arrival.
On arrival, yes.
And all of that. People, we must not mistake turnover for profit.
For profits,
basically. Yeah. So because you have that big money in your account doesn't mean that it's yours to spend. No, it's not profit. It's turnover. It's turnover, basically. There's a difference between revenue and profit.
Yeah.
So I believe that business owners should pay attention to these details. Very, very important. And now you asked again about... You asked about 4 different questions.
No, okay, so okay, yes, I know. So I done it one by one. So I said, so my other question was I've asked when is the right time to take a loan. Then 2, what kinds of loans should business owners stay away from?
Correct. Yes, that's one. So what kind of loan? So now, of course, when the terms of the loans are not favorable, I think you should not touch them and all that. Basically, I see some businesses with very high, some loans with very high interest. You know that these ones are literally going to kill your business. If somebody is starting to pay in today's world, in today's business, local terrain, you have to pay 5% per month or something. That's already 60% per annum. For crying loud. You get my point now.
Wow.
So by the time you factor in 20% inflation on it, that's additional cost. That's some 80% there. So how do you want to, except your business
take it on?
Yeah, exactly. Except your business is throwing out 500% returns. Which is not impossible.
Well, it's not impossible. It's not impossible.
Which is not impossible.
I'm actually targeting MSMEs. I don't know if it's also possible, but
very possible. No, it's very possible.
Yes,
so there are people today, of course, who are people that take these loans, and I know some people that have done it successfully, and they will, so it's about understanding your figures.
Understand your figures.
Yeah, because if you're making 200% returns, monthly. Why can't I pay?
Yes.
No, and I mean per annum.
Yes.
If I can make 200% per annum, why can't I pay a finance cost of 50%? If that is the only option I have.
Yes.
But of course, remember, like as we said earlier on, you need to have explored other cheaper sources of funding, basically. Yeah, so explore other ones, and if this is the only option you have, just ensure that you utilize the funds as soon as possible and you pay down. Yeah, so there are also ways in which someone can effectively manage that interest repayment. Basically, there are ways to manage it. Some that I know, some great traders, who operate overdrafts, and they just take the money. They take the funds in the morning, they trade with it, and by evening they pay it back.
Wow.
Yeah, you know that interest is computed at the end of the day. So I've used the funds, and I'm not going to recharge any form of interest.
So does that mean they're actually borrowing more money without interest? Without the interest
exactly.
doesn't. Wow.
Exactly. Of course, that applies to overdraft facilities around there.
Of course.
So you take it in the morning and you quickly turn it over. You've sold and you return it in the evening. Of course, this can work for every business structure.
Business, yeah.
But if you understand, there are ways in which you can beat this. We talked about supplier credit. You can renegotiate with your suppliers to extend instead of you paying in advance, instead of me paying on receipt of goods. Are you giving 30-day credit? Can you give me 2 weeks credit? And all of that. It helps basically. And there are different ways to work around this.
Things.
Basically.
So in trying to wrap it up, if I'm trying to get you correctly, debt is good, but know your figures, know your numbers, and don't get caught in I'm being offered this huge sum of money. Always think about your loan repayment, and always remember at the end of the day your credit rating matters, because there are a lot of people that I know personally who have borrowed monies, especially from these loan apps, and they're out. They borrow it, they shut it down, and they're on to another one. So I want to also ask, what other avenues should an entrepreneur look at to raise funds? What other avenues should an entrepreneur look at to raise money apart from the bank? Apart from the bank and getting that inflow. I know that there are a couple of other avenues, but can you just briefly speak on that, sir?
Okay, I think we've touched on some of them.
Yes, we have.
But we've not touched on grant. Basically.
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes,
grants also
that's true.
exist. Basically,
That's true.
we need to just do our research. Grant also exists.
Hmm.
I know of a business whereby it's a performance-based kind of grant. And that's a business model.
How does one hear about these grants?
So it's the information. Information is readily available.
Basically,
you need to just be in the right circles. You need to be in the right connections to be able to get the grants available to your business line, to your business sector. So that option exists basically, and some popular ones around.
Yes,
which we know people that have taken advantage of them, and they are doing very well today. Then of course there are also intervention funds. So from time to time, agencies, government, CBN also come in with intervention funds, which are usually single digits funding.
For grants, do you pay it back?
For grants, no, you don't pay back on grants. But for some performance-based grants, you would have executed the project, and based on what you have expended, based on what you have spent, you are refunded.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it is you're getting it. You're not paying back. However, you must have delivered
on a certain.
Yeah, you must delivered on the project.
On the project
before you now put in for the grant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Oke, for. I've learned so much. There are so many things to touch, because as an entrepreneur, all these things you're saying, I've lived it. I've heard about it. I've also seen from the experience of all that, and I'm sure our listeners too have learnt a thing or two. But I just want you to give a parting shot to that entrepreneur who is at that point where they want to scale their business, and they are thinking about, how do I get funding? How do I get funding to take my business from point A to point B? Definitely where I am, I'm stretched. I'm stretched beyond my current capacity. I need to move, and I'm looking for how to scale my business. What do you have to say as a parting shot to that entrepreneur?
Okay. I think you are doing a good job, and I'm speaking to that entrepreneur. Yeah, you're doing a good job. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of strength to even dare what you are currently, what you have dared, basically. So kudos to you. I think at this stage for growth and expansion, I will recommend that you engage a professional, who can just that place of bouncing ideas off each other, whereby you're able to leverage opportunities and information that readily available to you. So you can get to talk to an advisor, business advisor, and all of that. And I'm open. I'm willing. I'm open to be of help in that regard. My handle is Mr Oke, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Mr Oke, one word, basically, so we can talk. We can really look for in ways in which we can collaborate and provide some form of advisory services. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mr Oke, for your time. Thank you for sharing in your wealth of experience. I'm sure we will definitely have a lot of people give feedback on this particular episode, because it's a topic that touches everybody, every entrepreneur. Thank you for shedding light on such issues.
Thanks for having me.
I'm grateful.
Thanks, Thanks for having me.
It's been
my privilege.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. And thank you all for listening. Once again, this is the Coffee and Beans podcast. Find us on Instagram and Twitter at Coffee Beans Pod. COFFEEBEANS Send us an email for questions, feedback, coffeebeanspod@gmail.com. I have a day job. Follow us on Instagram at Outspoken Clothiers, OUTSPOKN CLOTHIERS. Till the next episode of this podcast, drink coffee, stay inspired.